Hey, so I saw a question in one of the Discord groups I'm in about extra stuff that you might want to have to go along with DCS, and I thought about it for a while. I was going to like write up a response to that, but I kind of think a video would kind of show some of these lessons learned that I've come up with over years of playing flight sims and in DCS recently to kind of show what I've bought over the years, stuff that's been unnecessary, things that I've really liked, that I've really latched onto, and then kind of some alternatives that I've come up with and tried that I maybe don't have here, but that I can kind of discuss. So I'm not really going to be going over like the hardware in this case, but just as a cursory kind of explanation of how I play DCS. I do play VR primarily. I'm really like VR, really into it. It is not necessary by any means. There's a lot of downsides to VR actually, and that's just something you know if you try VR and you know you like it, it's a no-brainer. But it's really not something to just jump into. Probably put on the description of this video, or maybe in maybe on the screen or something, what the specs of the PC are. But I do also play with HOTAS. Actually the first thing I want to get into of kind of extra stuff to get. If you get a nice HOTAS, get some covers for it. Something that I've found, especially recently, since I got these out of storage. I bought them back when I was in the Navy, probably back in 2015. And they've been sitting in storage at my parents' when I was stationed in Connecticut. I didn't bring them up there. Now that I'm back in North Carolina, I've got back into DCS and flight sims in general. And they were this one, the stick especially, is very crusty. It does help that recently I also bought actually got this all in a bundle. The Mesa mount, the Mesa covers, and a 10 centimeter extension for the Warthog. I'll go ahead and remove the covers now. And there's definitely a lot of problems. The way it was stored, you can see that it likes to stay forward now. So I did buy some grease to re-grease it, but that won't come in until after the first of the year. So yeah, going to the next thing, I do recommend, if you have a stick that supports it. If not, don't worry about it. But if you have a stick that supports it, an extension really does make a big difference. I was shocked at how much this has improved. Just the fine control and sensitivity of the stick. I personally did not upgrade the springs, and after I grease it, I might if it feels like it needs it, because right now it's fairly stiff just from the old grease and dust that's built up in there. The Warthog does not come with a dust collar of any kind, although you can get them. So it's just all accumulated in there. Sticks that are this expensive, just take better care of them than what I have. Just one of the lessons I've learned. I do have these as well, the crosswinds. If you can get the crosswinds, they're great. If not, I've used the Cytec pedals. I don't remember if it's the Pro line or not. I'll try to put up a picture of the ones that I used to have. I actually gave them to a friend a few years ago. And I've also had the CH Pro pedals. Actually, I gave him the Cytec pedals after I got the CH Pro pedals. And I really do not recommend the CH Pro pedals. I jumped the gun by giving him the Cytecs. The CH Pro pedals, if you're a woman, they might work a lot better. Let's just put it that way. They're extremely close together. Very uncomfortable after any amount of time sitting in a chair and trying to keep your feet together that close. For me, at least, it was way too much. So definitely recommend getting something that you can fit to your width, which these do allow, and the Cytecs did to a certain extent as well. And I think those are fairly reasonable in price. So those are probably, like, if you're going for an entry level, absolutely great. The MFGs have like adjustable cams and all kinds of cool stuff. You can detach the spring if you're flying choppers. Just really nice. If you're a chopper pilot, they're really good for that. If you're not, Cytecs are perfectly fine. Or even just a stick twist. I for many years used stick twist. These do not have stick twist by default. I think there's adapters that you can get to allow it that are third party. I know that Thrustmaster doesn't have them. And if you use the VKB base, they do have an adapter for the Thrustmaster, and they have an adapter for twist. I don't know if you can use both those at the same time, but it could be an option if you're in that kind of ballpark. The next thing I want to go into, this is something that I think is very easy to overlook. But if you don't want to be going back behind to your computer all the time, I really recommend a hub for your flight control specifically that allows you to turn them on and off. So I have all of my flight related stuff here that I can turn it on and off, because, I play normal games every now and then too. And sometimes they read the flight stick as a direct input, like an Xbox controller, like, whatever it's called, the X input. And when it sees them that way, these, for example, you'd have to get your throttle exactly centered to cancel out the input. And there's no default dead zone in a lot of games. So you're just always going to have your character spinning, for example. These rudder pedals, the toe brakes, for example, you can't just hold that centered. It's really annoying. So it's just really good to be able to just cut it off and not have to put a lot of strain on the cable. Because, that's actually, for example, one of the problems I have with my pedals with the MFGs. There's strain on that USB-A connector that's back there, specifically where it plugs into the pedals. And I've had some issues trying to get that right where it needs to be and not have it have communication issues with the computer. USB can be finicky, especially as it ages, and that's going to be very difficult to replace whenever it comes time to. I don't know if it'll even be possible. I might have to get a whole new set of pedals, and that's a shame. These are very expensive pedals to have to completely replace them because of a USB issue. So just don't put over too much strain on your USB. Use something like this that can be, chunked out easily if the buttons wear out or whatever. I probably got this for like $15 many years ago, and it's working just fine. So yeah, definitely recommend something like that. I also recommend cable management stuff. If you haven't thought about that, that's just get some Velcro. I mean, it's, easy to just get this all nice and neat. Even if it doesn't look great, it is nice and neat. Have like things to think about, little charger things for the index controllers. If you do go that route. Another thing, and this is I probably should have started with this. What's really critical, I think, is having some way to take notes. Now, if you're VR, we'll get into how to do that. I know that's a lot. That's a can of worms. It's a lot with that. Most people aren't going to have to worry about that. Again, that's a very specialist device. But if you're non-VR, pen and paper is great. I mean, it's fine. The problem with pen and paper is checklists. And if you want to have a checklist, you're sitting there wanting to print that out. I recommend that you get laminate sheets. You can get them on Amazon really easy. You don't have to get a laminator, just the sheets. And you peel off the laminate, and you stick the paper on it, and then you put the other sheet of laminate on top of that, and you just try to wrinkle the bubbles out. And then you can have a nice laminated checklist, and you could use a magic marker, or what I like. I was, like I said, I was in the Navy, and I got accustomed to these. It's a grease pencil, so it's like a mechanical crayon. Is how I would describe it. I mean, I can only found a white one in the bucket. So this is, I was doing a Fallout 2D20. It's like a D&D type campaign. I was GMing for it, and I had these maps made for the players. So this is one of the maps, and if they wanted to like mark notes on it, for example, they could put they could write it on there. It's kind of harder to see on the phone camera. I apologize. This phone camera is awful, by the way. So I'm sure you're getting all kinds of blur. The motion cancellation is just awful. But yeah, so you can draw on this pretty easily, and you can do your circle X's. So you have your step number on your checklist. So that's number 1. If you can see that, and you do circle when you're on the step, and then X through it when you're done with the step. And you can go through and do that, and then this just wipes off. I don't really want to use my finger too much for it, but you'd use like a rag, just some sort of crappy shop rag is probably perfect, or whatever you have. So this is a great low tech option. The grease pencils are not very expensive, or you can do magic markers, like I said. Nice thing about grease pencils, you notice it was a bit hard for me to wipe it off with my hand. If you're like putting your hand all over your notepad or your checklist, you're not going to wipe off by accident. It's just not going to happen. Unlike what would happen with a dry erase. So these are great. Really, really highly recommended. They're not very expensive. You can get big old things of them, different colors, which is great if you're a color oriented person when learning. It's a really good way to really hammer home how to do the steps just through kind of giving them different colors or whatever. And really recommend it for when you're learning a high detailed module. Obviously, if you're only playing Flaming Cliffs, not a big deal. It helps you to remember things like just INS alignment, like the different steps of that. Each aircraft is going to be different, so it's really nice if you want to do that. And then beneath that, I have this is called a Boogie Board. And this is going to show up really poorly on camera. This Boogie Board is a very, very low quality one. It's from the official manufacturer, but they really dropped the ball because you can't see hardly the lines. It just does not show up very well. And if you're in this is a fairly well lit room, and it's kind of showing up, but you can see if I get it just right. The markings disappear in the glare. But this thing is just like like an Etch-a-Sketch almost. You have a little button down here, and you can clear out what you've written. But you can go and you can draw. And you can lock it so that the button doesn't do anything, which is nice if you're, this is kind of easy to accidentally hit, so you can lock it out. And then there's also a button that you can hold. So if you, it's hard to do this with the camera in my hand, but if you hold that button, you can actually erase it. You're supposed to use this other end to do that, but these actually do the same thing. So this actually will draw if you're not holding that button down, if you push down hard enough. But I do recommend a better one than this. Just something with it that shows up better, just brighter. But yeah, I think you can get these in most stores now. I got mine on Amazon, but yeah, the old one I had before this one was smaller and way brighter, and I just think that was better. So I'd say get a relatively small one. It's going to fit on your desk easy, and just for jotting down quick notes, like a bootleg 9-line, whatever you need to do, just something real quick. Frequency that you need to type in later, stuff like that. Just quick things like that. You can write them in big text, or big, just write it huge out, big writing, and not worry about it. And then stuff that you don't really care about keeping in a notebook later. For example, like I said, a notebook is still a great option, but this is for things that you don't really want to like use up a sheet of paper for, especially if you need to write it with like big handwriting. These are great. So definitely recommend one of these, just not this particular model. Back to the for the VR users. I'm going to get the index out of the way. What I've been using, and this is actually perfectly usable if you're non-VR. So this is a Huion drawing tablet. So this is just a normal drawing tablet. If you've ever seen like the Wacoms, this is just a Knopf brand kind of piece of junk. I think this was like 40 or 50 bucks on Amazon, which I mean, not nothing to throw away. This is again, this is more meant for VR. If you have the dispendable income to get something like this for just regular, pancake use, it's great for that too. I'll probably do a demonstration of this in OBS later with, like at the end of the video, I'll show it with the index being used so you can see how it works in VR. But just to get an idea of how it works normally, I'm using OpenKneeboard, which does work with DCS. If I were in DCS, this aircraft tab, for example, would be filled out with the aircraft's kneeboards that are built in to a folder. So this is a free program. You don't have to pay for anything. You just go into this guy's GitHub and you get this. But let's go to the Viper here. So I have the PDF for the Chuck's guide for the Viper just like in a folder. And now if you look, you can see I have a little pin that shows up, and I can draw on this. So it actually has pressure sensitivity. It's not very, great, but I can do a thin line or a fat line. It's ideally a bit better than that if you're sitting down and in a better position. But yeah, you can draw whatever kind of drawings you want. Really great on those long flights when you just want something to do. You can pull up a sketch if you wanted to, honestly. But obviously the real intention of this is you go to some sort of checklist. This is one of the problems with it, by the way. I'll go ahead and show one of the issues. You have to cycle through every single page. It does remember more or less where you were, but it doesn't let you, there we go. It doesn't let you use the PDF functions for quickly cycling through. So I have actual checklists set up in the aircraft for each aircraft in DCS in a folder. So I don't use the Chuck's ones. They're also very small. But I can just go and circle the thing I'm on, exit when I'm done with it. Just like you would if you're doing like a military style procedure, at least, well, Navy nuclear style, I guess. I don't know if everybody does this, but yeah, you can circle and X. So I'll just show that from the drawing tablet's perspective. Now notice I'm using the drawing tablet in portrait because most of my notes are in portrait, whereas Chuck's guide is in landscape. So it's a little bit more finicky, but I'm just doing circle and X's on the next few steps. So there you go. And what I really like about this, I'm actually going to demonstrate this by opening up. I got a folder here. This is my DCS tools. I'll go through a few of these. These are like actual little software things that you can get as well that are nice for DCS. But I've got this window now focused. So you see that's unfocused window, focused window. So this window is focused. Now if I go back over to Kneeboard, I can actually still use, I'm using the arrow keys on my keyboard, and I can cycle through with the arrow keys. I can cycle through the pages with the left and right, and then up and down, I can cycle through the different categories. And I actually have made, if anybody wants these, by the way, these are just PNGs that I made that are lined paper that are, because I couldn't find any images of lined paper online, like that were just what I needed, like the right size. So I just made my own with different numbers at the top. And then of course you have your 9-line in there, as well as like the explanation of a 9-line. So you have, anything that you need. Resolution isn't great on this because of the monitor that it's on. But yeah, this is a very nice, very useful program. Again, just for not having to print, I don't really have a printer that works. So and I don't really want to pay the ink cartel to get printer ink. And I don't own a dot matrix printer, which I really wish I did. But this is just great for that, not having to waste paper on stuff. So, you know, it could be worth it to you, because all you have to pay for is this. You only have to get that. Everything else is free, you know, the OpenKneeboard, and, you know, it's really just getting drivers for the tablet, which isn't a big deal. That does bring me, though, to this point that I probably should have mentioned earlier, too. A second monitor, just for having things like Chuck's Guide open, really is helpful. It really does, like, you know, when you're learning, it's just nice to have it open. And what I like about OpenKneeboard, bringing back to this point, this window is still focused, and yet I can cycle through this. DCS requires you to have the window focused. So you can Alt-Tab, right? You know, like standard game, Alt-Tab out of DCS, and then go to another window. But then your inputs will not work. None of your inputs will work, including HOTAS. So DCS requires to have focus. It's just how it is. OpenKneeboard was designed so that it does not need focus, and that's just one of the reasons why I really like this app. And you don't even need you don't need a drawing tablet for OpenKneeboard. You just need it to draw on it. If you just want to open OpenKneeboard and just have your Chuck's Guides and the ability to cycle through it very easily, and this can be bound to your HOTAS too, if you had the spare buttons. You know, for example, if you're flying like, I don't know, like like an F-86, right? That thing has very few actual HOTAS bindable, you know, buttons on it. You could actually bind like some of the joystick buttons to that, just because the actual stick on that's fairly simple, or the throttle even. But I find that the keyboard works fine. And I got a crappy iBuyPower keyboard from 10 years ago that I still have yet to actually upgrade. So, you know, whatever, it's fine. It works. It does its job. I think that covers most of everything that I can think of at the moment. Definitely a nice chair helps. This is not a nice chair at all. So definitely save your back. I have a nice one at my parents', but haven't wanted to move it. It's been lazy. And if you have any questions, any other things, let me know. And if you have any other better ideas for how to do some of this stuff, I'd appreciate it too. Note taking is probably like the biggest thing that I can think of. It really is very useful. Something that, like, I think a lot of younger people might not think about, especially with flight sims. You know, I mean, I grew up in the era of the Windows 95, Windows 3.0 even. We had a DOS machine with Windows 3.1, and then the Windows 95. Grew up playing Fighters Anthology, and you know, that era, you just really had to take notes if you really wanted to be able to do any kind of gaming. And you know, most games now, they either have a built-in notes thing, or they don't need you to take notes at all. Cross the old man talk out of the way. I'll just run through these real quick because I'm not going to show them in my OBS capture later. I guess I'll just go through them. DCS Liberation is like a game mode, basically like a mission creator. So I really recommend you get that. It just updated to 6.0, and it adds like air assault. So if you have the Huey or any other helicopter capable of carrying infantry, it's awesome for that. Just a really awesome all around dynamic campaign for the game, since there isn't an official one. I got my server here and the SRS server. SRS client, that's something that you're probably going to want if you're playing a lot of multiplayer. It's just a, you know, kind of like if you ever played Arma, the Task Force Radio, it's very comparable to that, except you don't need to actually run a TeamSpeak server, which is great. You know, I've had a lot more hours in Arma than I do in DCS. I know a lot more about it, and I also hate it. I got my Huion drivers to launch here. Just a shortcut to Liberation. This is the server configurator through a local web interface. OpenKneeboard, which we've already talked about, and then the SRS auto updater. I also use TacView. TacView, if you're really trying to get into the game and really learn it, TacView is free for what you really need. You just go on Steam and download TacView. You can go back and look at your tracks. Also, if you know somebody, if you're trying to do get better at dogfighting, you can get somebody that has the paid version. And go on the server with them. The free version might work with a server with multiplayer hosting. I'm not really sure how that works since I've had the paid version for quite a while. But yeah, if you just know somebody, just get them on there, and you can have them spectate, and then they can pull their track file in after you've got done with whatever combat that you're trying to do, and then you can have them go through the track with you and talk about what you did wrong, what you did right, and just hot wash the whole thing. It's real great. If you haven't used it, I recommend you at least try it out. It installs as a mod, just like SRS does. They're very, very simple. DCS is actually very easy with getting the mods installed. It's really not. It's nothing difficult, even if you're not very computer literate. So definitely recommended. And I think that covers it for out here in the real world. I think I'll jump into into VR shortly, and I'll talk about some of the things that are VR specific for those people who do use it. And yeah, I think that'll just about do it. Okay, we're in the sim now in the Mirage 2000. So I'm going to first start talking about the OpenKneeboard stuff here. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about just head tracking in general, and then VR in general. So I have my 2 knee boards is what I use, and I can flick through with the arrow keys. So arrow keys by default in DCS are for keyboard joystick. That's kind of worthless if you have a HOTAS. So I've rebound it to work for OpenKneeboard because it's pretty intuitive. So left and right changes through pages, so I can go through my different note pages over here, and then up and down changes through the different categories. So I have like the mission categories, the mission I made. I didn't put any kneeboard in for it, which I guess I should have, but I did not. You have your radio log, you have theater pages. Persian Gulf doesn't come with any by default, so there's just none in there. I believe that only the Nevada Test Range and the Caucasus, maybe Marianas, I'm not sure. I think those might be the only 3 that have theater pages, but those come with like, your aviation charts if you want those. But I'm gonna go back to the aircraft page. This is automatically populated from inside a folder in your save games folder, where pretty much everything DCS that's user manipulable will reside. So I've actually, because I have the Warthog, I've got this sort of page that lets me reminds me what everything's bound to, so I don't have to go looking it up in the heat of the moment. So it's just a fillable PDF that you can get, a nice little thing to grab. Same thing with the throttle. And then I have checklists. So this is what I was talking about, the main, probably the main useful thing of this. You have your checklists, so you can go through and do the steps, cross them out, so you can go through and find everything, and pick the right things. This would be like not applicable. You can kind of go through all that. And the way that this is set up, I can hold down the button on the pin and erase the stuff I'm done with. Restarting the program will also erase all that, so you don't get to keep anything that's on these. You could screenshot it if you let's say that you were, mid-mission, you're doodling, you drew, I don't know, you drew something that you thought was real cool over here. I don't know, I'm not a drawer, so it's nothing's gonna look good. But you draw something, and you could screenshot it outside in Windows, because this is just, it's just a normal window. Now, I use 2 knee boards, and whichever one I look at is the one that becomes active. And you can see when I look away, there's no active one. Hopefully you can see that. I have to trim the VR view. But yeah, so I look at one, it gets lit up. You kind of see it. It just switches between the 2. Whichever one's active is the one that the drawing tablet will work on, and it's also the one that the arrow keys are going to cycle through on the pages. So that's pretty much it on that. I also put in all the Chuck's guides, which obviously these are extremely tiny by default. You can resize these. This is a new setup, so I haven't really gone through and set this up properly yet with the new setup that I've got. So I need to go through and tweak it. But for right now, it's fine, because I really like to have the notepads and the quick the quick checklists. Just having your pre-flight and your startup, and for this aircraft, the INS is kind of a pain in the ass. So it's nice to have everything to go through your INS alignment. Yeah, that's pretty much everything for the OpenKneeboard. I really recommend it, even if you're just playing the game, on your monitor. In fact, even on your monitor, it might be more useful, just because you can use the Chuck guide more easily. Like I said, in VR, that's going to be a little bit hard to read unless you have crazy super sampling. And I've got it pretty much about as good as you can do, and it's still a bit difficult to read the very small text, because the Chuck's guide just was not meant for VR. These checklists do work well, though. They're perfectly fine. I don't know if it shows up well in the recording, but they're perfectly visible by me. But yeah, now on to just talking about head tracking in general. So I have used a fairly wide range of head tracking solutions. So I started off with free track, like using a webcam. I actually had, from back when I was in high school, I had a crappy PlayStation 3i, like the webcam that you could get with the PS3. And I used that thing trying to play Arma. It was probably Arma 2 at the time. because that does support TrackIR, and it's, at least back then, this is 10 years ago, last time I really used it. Actually, more than that, more than 10 years. It was just too high latency. So you turn your head, and then your view would snap way later. So it was just really awkward, you know, trying to get that to work. So I really did not like that. Now, if you have a webcam already, you should at least try it. I really recommend that you try it and see if it's the solution that's good enough for what you're doing. If you don't have a webcam, I cannot recommend you go out and buy one specifically for free track, because I don't know how it's progressed. I still don't have a very good webcam. I just, you know, the best you see probably is this crappy index camera that I'm using, so you can kind of see, you know, how the setup is going at this time. So, yeah, it's just something I can't recommend, though you should at least try it if you can. Next thing I got was the well-respected TrackIR 5. I hate it, personally. Hate it, can't stand it, hate using it. It's just one little simple thing. The clips are obnoxious. I just cannot get them in a place where I feel like they're not in the way. They're just, it's just too much. The old clip, that's what I originally got, came with the TrackIR 5. It clips to a ball cap, and it has 3 reflectors on it. And the TrackIR has to blast your eyes with infrared, light, which I don't think is great for you. It's not terrible, but it's invisible light, and that's usually not a good thing, because your iris doesn't properly contract for light that you can't see, but you're still getting the radiation, the electromagnetic radiation. It's like looking at a light bulb that's dark, but it's still emitting the same amount of light. Like, you know, when you look at a light bulb, that hurts your eyes. But imagine if it were like not all, like, you know, all the same amount of energy is hitting your eyes, but you can't see it. That's, whatever. I'm not a huge fan of that. I say that, and I got the index towers up there, although those do go into sleep mode when I don't have this thing on. Because I don't really trust those either. So, yeah, just something to be cautious of. I don't know if there's any studies or anything that said that's really harmful, but, well, for the alternative on that, you could just use the TrackIR basically as an infrared camera, where it only receives passively and it doesn't bathe you with light. In that mode, you have to have the Pro Clip. Now, the Pro Clip, you don't have to wear a ball cap, which is, I guess, a good plus, not having to use a ball cap at your computer. However, you have to put this weird clip on the side of your headset, and I found the build quality on that thing abysmal. It's junk. It is absolute junk. The clips are cheap plastic, like cheap ABS. It has this weird crappy foam that tries to like keep it steady on the headset that gets smashed in, and like it just, I was not a fan of it. I still have it, specifically for Arma. If I fly again in that game, when Arma 4 comes out, if I want to fly, I'm keeping it around because I don't think that game's ever going to support VR. But I really can't recommend it personally. That clip, additionally, the cable that comes with, because there's no battery free there's no wire free version with like a battery or anything like that that's officially supported by TrackIR. There is one that I've seen on eBay that some guy made. That's I don't know if he just took a regular one and like just took the USB power and just gave it a battery slot with like little watch batteries or something. I don't know what the deal is, but it was like $80 for this thing, and it's outrageous. It's just way too expensive. For what it is, for being just a cheap little clip that just has 3 little infrared LEDs on it. And it has the mount. I don't know if it has the mount to the left side for accuracy. I have mounted it to the other side, but the clip doesn't like being there because it wants to fall over. It's just that's kind of a pain in and of itself. If your headset doesn't support it, it becomes a pain. I've pretty much never had a standard headset. I feel like they've always struggled with that thing staying on. And I always want to take it off when I'm done with it because it's so obnoxiously in the way. The little wire that goes with it is like, it always wants to do its own thing. If you have a wireless headset, I used to use a wireless headset, and it was awful with that because now you've turned your wireless headset into a wired one. If you have a wired headset, you have 2 wires now, which never want to stay together unless you tie them together.
and then the little ties get snagged on stuff. I hated everything about it. You know, I really can't say enough how obnoxious it was to wear that thing. You know, I used to wear sound-powered telephones, right? I was a submariner. I mean, like, I'd rather wear a set of sound-powered telephones than have a TrackIR on. It really is just obnoxious. And I know a lot of people really just don't have a problem with those things, with dealing with that. That's great. But if you know somebody who has one, try it before you buy it, because I have a few friends who have it, and they say all the things I said about it. You know, in my Arma community, I only know a couple of people who really like the thing. So I don't know where these people are online talking trash. I haven't seen them. I've only seen people talking praise for it online. But in my communities, I've heard a lot of people echo the problems I've had. So that just something to keep in mind. I want to be that kind of, you know, that devil's advocate, or I guess the opposite of devil's advocate. I want to tell you not to buy it. Try it. But you know, now you have Tobii as well, a wire-free option. I'm not sold on Tobii. I've never used it. I want to try it. I really do want to try Tobii, but I know that it can track your head and not just your eyes. But you know, like I said, I haven't tried that. I don't know how the latency is with that functionality. I really haven't looked too much into it because, you know, VR has kind of been my main head tracking source. I'm very happy with it. Like I said, it just doesn't really support Arma, but my Arma community is kind of dead right now, waiting for you know, either a Reforger to be playable or for Arma 4. So you know, I've been mainly playing games that support VR, and it's honestly because of the one-to-one. I mean, just being able to look behind you, which, you know, looking in my kind of somewhat mess of a room right now. You know, it's not, it's not you know, anything unlike just being there. I guess it just works. Everything just feels great. You know, you just got this 3D aspect to it. It has a lot of gameplay implications. It's really not just a graphical gimmick in my mind, at least for the way that I think of things, the way I play things. It's just really nice to just have that feeling of being there, just for understanding spatially what's happening. I actually just recently got my Part 107 drone license, and got a drone for Christmas, and been flying that around, and it is, to me, hell trying to understand where trees are, because it's a FPV, you know, or it's a drone with a gimbal camera, you know, and it's a professional drone, and you know, I can see the trees, but I can't tell how far they are. It's pancake. You know, I have to look up at the drone, so I'm constantly dividing my attention between the you know, the controller and the drone itself, and I'm just really nervous with that. You know, not being able to always see where hazards are, but I can't really do. You know, I could never do stuff like this with the thing because I just don't have that level of 3D, that spatial awareness that I've grown accustomed to flying in VR. So just kind of something I wanted to rant about a little bit. This video is going on for probably way too long, and if anybody's still watching it, feel free to leave any questions on it, on any of this type of thing, and I'll try to give you as much input as I can on trying to get the best out of your setup. I would say don't buy VR for DCS, though, in closing. Buy it for everything else it can do. I personally, this is like not even the game I play the most. I play Hot Dogs, Horseshoes, and Hand Grenades, which is like a gun simulator. That's like my bread and butter in VR. The DCS is just a nice plus. DCS, VTOL VR, you know, like the games like that, they're great. But these are not the main games I'm playing. It's just, I like flight, I like aviation, I like military stuff, right? I was in the military. So it's just a nice little side hobby. But yeah, I play Beat Saber more than I probably play this. So, you know, it's a nice plus if you already have the headset, if you're already using it for what it's really meant for. It's great. Just a great little addition. It's not that hard to justify jumping up into this, you know, if you're into the flight sim stuff. But you don't need this. My buddy Dan plays DCS entirely with a gamepad. Like, he mainly plays Flaming Cliffs 3, but he plays entirely with a gamepad. And so you don't need all this, right? I mean, he's talking about like if he was to get a HOTAS, like getting milk cartons to like put them up on, right, to have the space to put them. So you don't need a maze. You don't need Mesa mounts. You don't need the Monster Tech stuff. If you want to go that route, you don't need all this stuff. It is nice to have it. It's awesome. The immersion level that you get out of it is incredible. But you can still kick ass. I mean, he's definitely beat me in a dogfight at least once or twice. With the SU-27. So you don't need this to be good by any means, right? It's just there to increase your level of immersion, to like really have you there in the moment. And like I said, it will improve gameplay. It will make you better at like the spatial awareness stuff. But this is not practical. What I'm doing right now, it's not going to make you win a dogfight, right? Like this is just me having fun. I mean, this is granted, this is 99% of my time in DCS is doing this. Just getting low to the ground, flying past buildings, and having this nice rig with this nice setup really does improve that. It just makes it feel so much faster. Again, spatial awareness, but it's not necessary. So that's it for closing remarks. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Have a good one.